Welcome to MSP Unplugged Tech Talk Tuesday, pricing your offering. I'm your host, Rick Smith. This is the place to learn tips, tricks, and strategies to help grow your IT service business. Whether you're a one-person shop or leading a team for the journey, this is the place for you. Let me introduce my co-host, man who needs no introduction, the one, the only, Mr. Paco LeBron. How are you today, sir?
Coming into blurry vision here, don't know what's going on with that, but doing well. Better than good, better than most, as I like to say. How you doing there, Mr. Smith?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. Don't worry about the blurry vision. As long as we can hear your voice and get your knowledge, we'll be okay today.
Let's see if that fixes that.
But today we wanted to talk about something that comes up a lot. And again, I have to say the disclaimer: the views you expressed by Paco and Rick are those of Paco and Rick. They do not necessarily mean you have to do it this way. It is just an option for you to give you some options on how you do things, basically. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about pricing and how we practice pricing our managed service offerings. I'm going to toss this over to you real quick, Paco. When you are going through your process of pricing, what do you think about it? And I'm saying it this way: there are several ways to do it. Some of us do it by device, some of us do it by per person or per user. And then there's a combination of them. So, what method do you follow?
So has been a very big internal debate here at Prodigy X. And you know who you are internally, who listens to this. So right now we are pricing per user. And the reason for that is as users are starting to get away from endpoints, they're starting to get away from using like a laptop, they're using their tablets, they're using their phones, using more cloud first things such as SharePoint, OneDrive, etc., to access their stuff. That's how we're kind of billing at this present moment. We used to bill per endpoint, but come to realize that the amounts that we were charging seemed pretty high for the amount of devices we were trying to allocate together, especially with the stack that we were trying to put together. So what we've done now, and probably in the past 2 years or so, have been per user.
Okay. And now, do you find that? And I get your explanation and your understanding of it. So, do you find that makes that happy medium you're looking for, or?
So in the beginning, before it did, I think that it was pretty solid. It worked really well. It ate up on any missing costs that I may have that would be on the labor side. It was pretty solid for what I had. But there's arguments to where there's additional costs that might be being carried or kind of bleeding over that needs to be reviewed. So,
okay. And the reason I asked that, I know the internal debate that you're talking about that you're going through, and I just asked the question on that. So here's the second part of that, and when I'll actually let me answer the question I asked first on my side. Right now, the way I started this initially was, and I'm just gonna be honest, I took all the cost of everything, added some labor on it, added a margin on it, added some labor, and that was my price, right? Which is similar to what I do now, but and I've been doing this for a couple of years now. As you know, I'm a member of the Tech Tribe as well, and there's a lot of discussion. Yeah, shout out to the Nigel and the Tech Tribe. There's a lot of discussion that goes on about pricing. Now, one of the admins there, who happens to be an MSP, he did a presentation that he made available to the Tech Tribe. This is Ernest Murray. So I'm going to shout out to Ernest Murray.
And we really need to get him on the show.
Yeah, we definitely should.
That's
definitely
one smart
so Ernest, if you're listening or if anybody knows him, tell him we're looking for
him our way. We are, because I mean, it was because of his videos that got me into Intune. So that's one smart dude right there for sure.
Yeah, very, very smart guy. He's in the tribe. He's very helpful. And the thing that is probably most impressive is he's very open about how he does his business. He doesn't hide
Yeah.
anything. There's no internal trade secrets. If you ask him a question, he'll give you an answer. And the great thing about he did these the video on pricing, the video on Intune. He did all of that. He just shared it openly on how he does it and how it works. So one of the things in watching his pricing video and how he explained it is where I made my adjustment to how I do pricing now. So we price basically.
Pause.
Okay.
When did this happen?
This was over 2 years ago now.
Oh, okay. All right, continue.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
Oh, you thought I was gonna come up with something new?
Well, because as we all know internally here in MSP Unplugged, we know that we tend to look at other solutions and other ways of doing business, and we think we're solidified in one way, and then we hear another piece of information. It's like, and then we start to adopt it another way. So I thought you may have recently.
Oh, no.
And then you decided to change your pricing scheme, and I was like, okay, very good.
No more pricing changes for me right now. No more price. The scheme is not changing right now. So what we do is we price basically on three tiers, right? And this is the three things we protect, basically, right? We protect the users, we protect the devices, and we also protect the network. So, and we call that the platform. For us, we call it the platform, right? So that is how we price everything. So there is a per user price, a per device price, and a per and a platform fee. And basically that platform fee is basically what it costs for us to do all of the other things that it takes to manage the business outside of device, any software or that goes onto a device. That goes part of the device fee. Anything that protects the user, this is mail protection, password protection, training, training, things like that. All of those fall under the user fee. And then everything that goes on the platform is basically, if we have a firewall installed and we're managing the firewall, if we are, I'm just going to go down my list real quick here. Documentation, monitoring the network, any dark web monitoring, if we do that, domain management, all of those things. There's a list of them, and I have about 18 things that fall on this list that all go into the platform fee. That takes into account, and I'll just say this, when we're trying to account for all our costs in the platform fee, we account for our RMM, all of those that are not necessarily cost of goods sold, but expenses that we use, again, lifecycle insights for QBRs. I'm just going to give a few, just Zomentum that we use for our proposals. We use got a lot for Verisoft for our client portal. So all of these things, they fall into that category as well. Now, what we do is, and we talk margin all the time. So we take those costs and then we add a 70% margin on each one of those. So then we have a price per user, per device. There's a set fee, and I should say this: servers, there's a set fee, right? Because we break out, and I should have said this too. So part of the device count is laptops and desktops basically fall into one part, and then there is a standard fee for a server. There's a standard fee for the platform, and then there's an advanced fee for the platform. And that's if there are additional things that have to come along with that. So there's basically falls into two price brackets. And what we do too as well is we price Office 365 separate. So it falls into, and the reason we do that, now I'll just say this way: Office 365 is a published price, right? You'll catch hell if you charge a 70% margin on Office 365. And it's not really where we don't make our goal is not really to try to make a ton of money on Office 365. We offer the service for Office 365. So that comes in within our service fee. So we manage the account and manage that, and any updates or training and things, or any service we have to do for an Office 365 account for the client falls under the service portion. So we charge the Office 365 fee separate. So you will see your monthly charge, and then you will see your productivity charge, which will say Office 365 and however many licenses you have. And that's the way it's laid out. You got that face, but I remember that. Oh God! And it sounds a lot complicated, but it really isn't. We just, I've spent countless hours, and you know about this, working on the spreadsheet to go.
I just want to make note for everyone listening. This man just said, "I know it sounds complicated, but it really isn't." And then we went ahead and said, and we're going to rewind it back and hear him say, "I've spent countless hours trying to go ahead and set this up." I tell you, it's like one of the Dave Chappelle skits where it's like, "I didn't put my feet on that man's couch." Yeah, I put my feet on that man's couch. Yeah, that's exactly what happened right here, is what I just heard. But go ahead.
What I had meant to say was, what had happened is that I just spent time working on the Excel spreadsheet. Like, I put it on Excel, put the prices that I charge for everything in there on one page, and put the breakdown on the other. And then basically all I have to do now is punch in users, devices, the platform fee, things like that. Now I do, and we've talked about this too. When I first started this, and we talked about it, this was years ago. You remember Jerry Bransfield he converted it for me into a database, into an Access database. I say Axiom, into an Access database folder, which was very helpful. So I'm going to have to reach out to Jerry to see if he can update it for me based on what some of the changes that were made. This was at least 2 years ago now, maybe even longer. Wow.
Yeah, because I think it was January of 2019 when we were all in Chicago. Was when that
happened. Okay, so yeah, so we're going
close to 3 years.
4 years. Yeah, 19, 20. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
been a long time.
Dang.
4 years, yeah. So
no, 3 years. Going on 3 years. Anyway, math is hard, but you know what I mean.
Right, math is hard. That's why we have Excel and calculators. Really? But so I spent a lot of time working on it, doing it that way. And it seems to work out pretty good. It doesn't, again, when looking at it from the point of view of, when I present it to clients and feedback I get, and other people's pricing I've seen in my area, I am not I am in the middle to top tier. So I guess if you put it on a chart, I'm at that 75% level of what's being charged out there. And I'm totally fine with that. I'm comfortable with it. For what we offer, if things change, we'll make some adaptations. But at this point right now, as we add things in, I'm comfortable with it. So I've just put it all out there, how we do it. And I will say one other thing that I think is very important here. The way I price this, and I'm glad I did this. This is a lesson I learned. And I honestly cannot remember who said it, but I remember them saying, and I can remember the words. You don't price your stack or your offering based on where you are now. You price it based on where you expect to be. And that means you base it on a certain amount of clients you expect to have, a certain amount of employees you expect to have, what your expenses are you expect to have, because if you don't do it that way, you'll run it. If your pricing is too low, basically, as you start adding people, you're not going to be able to cover all your expenses. You're not going to be able to cover everything. So you price it based on where you want to be and not where you are. So back to your SMART goals.
No, I think, yes, definitely SMART goals. Yeah, I think that's the decision that a business owner has to make, right? And is, how do you want to price, and how much do you want to battle with that price to give it to a client, right? So my question for you is, you have a new prospect, 4 users, 3 desktops. How long does it take you to put a quote together for all of the other additional information you need to put together to get them a quote? And how long is usually that turnaround time?
Well, 4 users and 3 desktops.
3 desktops. Obviously, there's more information you're going to need to put all
Right.
that in there,
We have a
but
questionnaire.
let's
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
but let's say on that questionnaire, right? You have your questionnaire and you go through it all. Once you have all the data, how long does it take you to input the data and get a quote to them? What's your normal turnaround time?
Normal turnaround should be 24 hours.
Is
And
that
that
you're usually so a client? So a client.
Did you hear my words?
No, I hear your words, but that's why I want to hear for everybody to be honest, so everyone can hear. Because I don't do it in 24 hours.
No,
Because,
what were my words?
no, I want to know what
I
it
said
is.
normal turnaround should be.
Hey, we ain't none of these sugarcoating podcasts that are around here trying to make everything look all nice and dandy and all gumdrops and rainbows. We got to make sure we let the people know what's going on here.
Okay.
So,
Well,
with your pricing schema, with your database, with your Excel spreadsheet, how long do you usually that you would say from when you get the quote, add in that came in at a 2:30 in the afternoon, you got other stuff you got to take care of, you got the other jobs you got to take care of, you go ahead and have it done in the morning. How long does it take for that cycle to enter all your info and get a quote to them in their hands? On average,
it's been 2 days, but what it should be is 24. It should be no time because it's all laid out, and I'm telling it's laid out in 2 places, right?
Okay.
And just in the steps, right? So we do the initial call, then we do the visit. The visit takes the inventory, right? The when we do the on-site visit,
that's a good point too. Go ahead.
Right. So the on-site visit gives us the inventory. Now, what we do from there, which I wasn't doing before, but you get caught off guard.
Mm-hmm.
I ask the client the question. You have to always, and it's on the bottom of my sheet now every time. Are there any other people? I have, Mr. Jones, in your business, I see you have 8 employees, you have 12 computers, 1 server, and then all your equipment is in this room that you use to service, that your internet runs through. Are there any other employees that are not present that work, whether part-time or full-time, or work from, now you have to ask from remote as well? Are there any other devices? Anyone have any laptops that the company owns that you use that I don't see here right now, right? So we have to ask that question, because I've been stung a couple of times where you price something and then all of a sudden another machine pops up, another desktop pops up, another laptop. Oh, I forgot this was at my salesman's house, or I forgot, whatever. So those questions have to be asked. So what we do now, here's the process is, and the disclaimer has to be put in on as well, right? So we get those numbers. I say, hey, this is what I have. Does this look accurate to you? Client says, yes, of course. So we pop that number into the spreadsheet. The spreadsheet gives a price, but we also have it set up and based in our Zomentum now. So when we give them the proposal, we just put the quantity in. And that quantity will calculate and give the price for the monthly fee. It gives the price for the onboarding fee. And that's what goes out. So realistically, it should take, the client should be able to get it the next day. Life happens, things happen, blah, 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 blah. So I always tell them 2 days. You should have something within 2 days. I think the smarter thing is to try to get it to them as soon as possible as you visit, because it's fresh on their mind. You don't give them, it's not a sales trick, but you don't give them time to think or get into something else. And then, you have to basically go back and resell whatever you're doing, because you're already going to have to battle on the price anyway. So.
Makes sense.
Did I answer your question?
It sure did. Just curious on how you've systematized and automated that process, because I know that could be a daunting process to try and put that all together.
It is a pain. And that's where the back end work takes place, right? That's where the whole thing about automating and systematizing and whatever else we do is to make the last part easy. So, and we're in the process now of making the change, because the technical side on the selling portion of it, not selling, but on the pricing portion of this, there's no real selling of it, right? We're not selling technology, we're selling benefits. So a lot of this now is going to be, Latrice and I talked about, she's going to do a lot of that portion. Once I do the on-site portion of this, I was going to drop it in her lap and say, hey, get it to the client. And all she's got to do is plug in the numbers, and then the follow-up phone call 24 hours after. And then that's that. And then we use Zomentum is great for letting you know if the client has read your, if they picked it up, read it. So that's always important. So they don't tell you, oh, I didn't see it, or no, I didn't get it, or whatever. So then you can go ahead and call and have that conversation.
Now, do you charge for the on-site inventory? On-site?
I do not. I do not charge for the on-site visit. I do not charge for the initial visit, the initial conversation, which basically is really a goals-oriented thing. Basically, what are your goals? What are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Understanding the business. And I don't charge for the on-site visit. But that is why I do charge for an onboarding fee.
Okay, that's what my next question was.
Okay.
Now, what we do over here at Prodigy Techs is not half of the stuff that you do. No, I think all great lessons to kind of learn on, right? And I think that for us, what we've done is a lot of our clients are remote work, so they don't have a centralized office anymore, or they meet, or they're trying to get away from it. So what we do is two things. One, we will, once we've confirmed what the amount of users and all that they've said, we will bill them for that, with the exception of, hey, if we detect anything else, it's going to be more, right? And they'll sign off on it or whatever. Then we'll go ahead and drop ship them an Overseer hub, and then they'll go ahead and connect it if they have an office, plug it up. It'll scan the area for us. We take care of everything, boom, what the bam. Now, that's if you have a savvy user, you got to go from there, blah, blah, blah. But if they have not signed a contract, I'm not stepping foot in anybody's door. I'm not touching anything. I'm not working on anything, because the moment I'm there, they're going to say, you did something. And then now it's a whole thing to try and get it fixed. And so decided not to do that. Plus,
just to be clear, we don't touch anything. We just walk through.
Your eyes. That's what it was. You were just looking around with your eyes, and they said that the Wi-Fi got messed up.
Take inventory.
But what we do is, so the reason why we don't do that anymore is because we've come to find out that when we go for on-site to do a pitch or to discuss or whatever the case may be, we've realized that those people never really care enough to let us know that they're not going to go with us, or they don't respect the time. So I remember I got into it with one prospect specifically that said, yeah, I want to be able to meet you. I want you to come in and see if we can vibe, if we're good for business. I was like, no, I think that's what the phone call's for, to see if we can build a rapport and kind of go from there. And then if we need to see your infrastructure, we have to charge you for an on-site. Well, I understand. Like, I just want to be able to talk. What do you need to take? We're telling you what it is. It doesn't work that way. We have to figure out, look what we got, what you got, and go from there. Literally back and forth to the point where I told him, I said, you know what? We're probably not a good fit. Mm-hmm. And he was like, some explicitives and like, what do you mean that we're not a good fit? I was like, no, because you're trying to do business and you're trying to force me to do business your way, and that's not how we do business. So I think you need to find someone else. And he was like, so he was pretty upset about it. But yeah, it's just one of those where you kind of have to just stick with your guns on what you want to try and do when you're trying to figure out and pricing your stack, because your labor's got to be a big piece of that too. So if you don't consider your labor in there, you're probably just going to run up the bill and you end up losing a little bit in the beginning before you make an actual profit.
So your labor cost is what you take into like the cost of visiting is what you take into account as to why you don't do that. Is that accurate?
Yep, because my time is money. That's what that is right there. For me to go there, or a subcontractor or whatever, if they're not a client, if they haven't signed anything for us to do that, the completed audit, we won't do it. Even down to like drop shipping something to get it set up. Like if they can't plug in a wire and plug it in, then they can't do it.
Okay. So, okay. That's interesting. And it's a way to do it. I'm that person who I like to meet the people. I like to talk to them. I like to see them face to face. And sometimes, I get it, but sometimes Zoom and whatever is not enough for me, right? Zoom or Meets or Teams or whatever we speak on is not enough for me. I like to go physically see what I'm dealing with, because the other thing you get from me, the other thing I get from that is when I walk into a room and see what I'm dealing with, I'll sometimes know the difficulty of what my job is going to be to manage this network. And I've walked into some exquisitely neat server rooms, and I've walked into some horror shows. And again, you do business with people like, and trust, and you get that feel too. So some people will be like, I don't think we're a good fit for you, or you can get that, and then they can come out later. So that's why I like to do that initial on-site. But I think it's important what you said. You don't touch anything, you don't run anything, because again, and I think we talked about this at TechCon, you touch it, you own it, right? So you don't, until you have something signed, you don't run anything with it. One of the things until you have something signed, you don't touch anything or discover anything, that in no tools, no nothing. One of the things we're thinking about doing, I'm in the process of trailing Cyber CNS, which would give you that. Now this would require an adjustment to how we do things, but that would kind of give you that scan you're talking about that you use Overseer for, but it also gives you some, if done correctly, that can also give you any security issues that may be present, things that that are coming up. So one of the things, and this is the vulnerability scanner, it tells you, it does a lot of different things. So one of the things that would require is explain to a client, hey, this is your preliminary price that we've agreed upon. We're going to now, this is what you told us you have. This is where we are. This is how we charge it, which you understand. We're going to run a scan now that we're doing business, and we're going to show you, we're going to see if there are any other devices we didn't account for, if there are any outstanding issues that we didn't take into account. I've not done this before, so I don't say I want to try to eliminate any surprises, because you don't want to bait and switch a client as well, right? You don't want to tell them, hey, your price is this, and then you go on to discover that they need X, Y, and Z. So I'm thinking about getting some kind of rider in the contract that just basically says, we can't account for, just basically we can't account for things we can't see. And that'll be, you tell me your server's 2016 and I found that it's 2008, or you tell me, whatever the case may be. And then that's where as well, we can talk to them about budgeting and what we can do going forward to bring them up to where they need to be. But that's it. I'm gonna and I didn't say this in the beginning, but when we do that on site now, with the questionnaire. Like we'll do the visit and we'll ask the questions. When we ask we ask the questions on the phone during the call. We try to do an assessment based on what they give us there, based on using our NIST schematic, basically to see where they would score at, where the security is now based on what they tell us, where we're trying to get them. And there's usually it's a way to help when we're selling and say, hey, when we give them a proposal, say, hey, based on what you gave us, this is where you are. You're lacking this, you need this. Part of our offering gives you these things that should bring your score to, we want to get somewhere in the green, which is between 75 and 100%. So that's where we're trying to get you, and that's what this will do, and all of the other things as to the benefits of being there. So I'm just giving away the tools that I use because I'm a client of Lifecycle Insights, and they have a very good assessment tool that you can make up questions if you want, or you can base, they have some templates based off of NIST, based off of CIS-8, and some other ways to do it. So it's just it's a way for us, a way to make sure we get all the questions answered going into giving a price.
Very good. I also go ahead and have a similar questionnaire from one of the bigger MSPs that I work with. They kind of helped do a lot of their qualifications for some of the warm leads that they send over. So we kind of looked at it, adjusted them a little bit to how we want to ask for particular, or as we qualify our prospects on that. And it's been pretty in-depth list, about 23 questions, trying to figure out kind of what's what. We have it loaded into Synchro and try and transition that over to Zomentum as well. See how that loads up from there.
Yeah, that's what honestly, where the work is coming is getting all of these automation tools to work together. And that's where the challenge has been. It's really been, like I said, I'm old fashioned on the pricing portion of this. I just built a spreadsheet, and that spreadsheet I used. Yeah, that's very old school, I know, but I'm an old guy. So then, that moves over to Zomentum. And from there, now we go from our CRM to the spreadsheet to Zomentum. Zomentum feeds into, what are you looking like that for? And Zomentum feeds into Synchro.
It goes from your CRM.
The CRM is all of the initial contact stuff. Then we do our on-site.
I'm with the CRM. And then okay,
we do our discovery call, which we use the Lifecycle Insights assessment tool, right? As we're talking to them, asking the questions. The on-site is really just our inventory that we take, and that further comfortability conversation with the client to make sure they're a right fit for us and we're a right fit for them.
Right.
And the presentation goes into Zomentum.
Okay.
Which we just pop it in the spreadsheet to get a price, but we can pop it in the Zomentum as well. It gives us the same price. The presentation goes out.
The goal of the spreadsheet is now it'll be translated into Zomentum, is what you're saying.
No. There's no automation there unless someone else can hand it to me and tell me what it is. The spreadsheet is really more so for
just the calculating of the numbers.
Right. It's the calculating the numbers, make the adjustments, because the spreadsheet has for each section of the pricing we're doing, the spreadsheet has a breakdown of every product, right?
With the formulas and all this other stuff.
With the formulas and all that stuff, right? And that comes out to a per device, per user, per device, per user, because everything else is set. So then that number goes into Zomentum, which spits out the proposal. That goes out, client accepts it. Once they accept it, it feeds as an estimate into Synchro. And that's how we bill it. And then we're off to the races. Then the next step is all of the onboarding stuff we have to do. Another form for the client to fill out.
Onboarding could be a whole topic, which actually it was a topic at TechCon with you and Henry. TechCon, you know what? I gotta see what Henry's up to, so I can go ahead and get him to come on the show so we can talk about onboarding. Maybe we can try and steal him for next
further
week.
that conversation. Definitely. But yeah, that's it. That's how I go about it. Most importantly, like I said before, I think for me, growing pains and learning to price correctly, pricing for everything and not forgetting all your other expenses, right? So, if you're using QuickBooks, if you're using whatever you're using, if you have an accountant, whatever, you'd be amazed if you looked at your monthly expenses for your business that you don't think about, right? That you don't account for, because honestly, when I started doing this, I was so focused on what's in the stack, what's in the client, what's in the labor costs for that, right? You forget about all the other things. If you have a place for rent, if employees, taxes, all of that host of
Uncle Sam loves his piece, that's for sure.
Yeah, and you got to account for it.
Mm-hmm.
Internet, phones, all of that stuff has to be accounted for. So the way I do it is, because then we're trying to get to a 30% gross margin at the end, right? Net profit, I'm sorry. So the way I do that is I look at my pricing, I look at what my costs are for everything, bring it all down to the end, do the calculation. Is my, if I'm at 30%, then I'm doing good, because you're not going to make 70% at the end because you got all the other expenses. But that tells me if my pricing is too high or too low, right? Or it's never too high, but if your pricing is too low, if you're not able to cover everything else. So it's just something to keep in mind. And like I say, I think the biggest lesson I learned when I started doing this, I was a solo tech. And the biggest lesson I learned was not pricing for the growth in my business, right? So you have to take that into account. I think that's probably most important is pricing for where you want to be, where you expect to be, and not from where you are.
Couldn't have said it any better there, Mr. Smith. Couldn't have said it any better.
Yeah, so that's my pricing soliloquy for the day.
Pricing soliloquy for the day. Yeah. Yep. No, I can't add more onto it. I mean, I think you kind of hit on being able to price that properly, what you want to try and consider in pricing, and really just understanding that you gotta scale where you're going, but you gotta also go behind your means as well, right? Because you got to be comfortable with what you sell. If you're not comfortable with what you sell, you're not going to make the sale. So, being able to figure out what you could do that, and then obviously, in turn, you're working with your vendors. And trying to be confident in their products. So if you're not confident in what they're doing, you're not confident in what you're doing, and you're not confident in what you're selling. So it's all kind of tied to each other to try and figure out as you're pricing that stack. So obviously do your research, try and figure that piece out. There's not one right answer. You'll have multiple debates, arguments, discussions, mutinies inside of your household, trying to figure out what you want to do. My advice is get the good. That's going to be the theme for the year, is get the good. Get the good, and then you get the better, then you get the best. Get the good. So
yeah, I had to steal that yesterday in our meeting. So that we want to get the good. I had to steal that yesterday. So
just get the good. So you just do. Once you get do, you'll get a lot further than you just are getting that analysis paralysis.
Right. And the thing about it is that you do it whatever works. Like everything else in this business, you're gonna do what works for you. You take, Paco and I do it two different ways. His way works for him. My way works for me.
His way is right, and I'm wrong. That's what he's trying to be nice about.
Never, sir, never. What's right is what works for you, and that's the truth of it. And the way I do it, I may find out later, is not the right way to do it, or I may be leaving money on the table, and somebody may show me that, and then I'll have to make some adjustments. I'll be like, damn, all this work, but we'll make some adjustments. But it just depends. Like, at this point, it's just the most important thing is to like Paco said, get the good, but what you cannot do is shortchange yourself on the pricing. Like, don't, this goes into a whole nother thing, but I'll just say this, and I was guilty of this for a while. Don't let the client dictate the price.
Right.
And don't be afraid to walk away because it makes no sense to negotiate on a price down to a point where you're breaking even, because if you're breaking even, you're losing money.
Right.
So it makes no sense to negotiate with a client who doesn't see. If price becomes, like I say this all the time now because I've really learned this. If price really becomes a sticking point, then either you haven't done your job in selling the value, or you're just working with the wrong person. It's really the truth, because so I'm starting to accept that and not get so upset when things don't go right, or a potential client doesn't accept my proposal, my way of doing it. And I'm also very, very, very proud of myself that I can look at somebody and say, this is not going to work, and the money is not going to be enough to make this a good relationship. So you just decide in the beginning just to walk away and not have it anymore, not have it. Period. Don't put yourself through it.
Yep. Nothing like getting a bogus client and having to wake up every Monday morning dreading a call that they're giving you on something going on. I remember firing my first client for that same reason. They just outgrew us at the time, and it was just myself. And I remember it was a big hit revenue wise at the time. But I remember, boy, coming in that Monday, not having to worry about that phone call coming in. It was such a great feeling in the world. So I'll tell you that for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So unless there's anything to add, Paco, I think we can call it a night.
The only thing I want to add, separate to this, is for those that are inside of our online community over in that is currently hosted on Facebook, there's 2 entries to get in. You have to either have purchased a ticket for TechCon Unplugged. So for those that have purchased a ticket in TechCon Unplugged 2022, you have a year subscription inside that group, or becoming a Patreon subscriber. We mentioned this in the previous couple episodes ago. The tiers are changing. There is now a new tier there that is the new tier. It's $5 a month. For those that are signed up on the old tier that have not purchased a TechCon Unplugged 2022 ticket, do migrate over to that new tier. That will be going into effect January 1st. So for those that are on the old tier will be decommissioned. So if you have not purchased a TechCon Unplugged 2022 ticket, or you have not gone ahead and pledged to the new tier, unfortunately your membership will have expired. And so January 1st, if you don't find yourself in the MSP Unplugged.com MSP Unplugged online community, which is currently hosted on Facebook, then it's probably either something going on with the Patreon subscription, or you did not purchase a ticket. So one of the two. So if you have any questions, email us info@mspunplugged.com. More than happy to answer any questions on that, but that is a change that is coming here. We have been mentioning it since October, since after the last TechCon in September. So we'll be gradually and specifically, and probably a few more times after that, until January 1st, to let you know to subscribe. And with that, I'll leave it to you, Mr. Smith.
Okay. Well, everyone, want to thank you again for spending your evening with us on this Tuesday evening. For those of you listening on audio, what day it is, but thank you for your time listening to us. We ask you to tune in every Tuesday and Thursday. You can watch the video podcast on youtube.com/MSP Unplugged or facebook.com/MSP Unplugged. If you check us out on LinkedIn, you just hashtag MSP Unplugged and you'll find the live stream there, as same as Twitter. What we do need you to do for you, those of you who do catch us on YouTube, we need you to like, subscribe, hit the notification button to be notified whenever a new episode is available. You can take us on the go on your favorite podcatcher app. We're on Amazon Music, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Listen to us while you're working out, taking a drive, on your way to a client. Maybe you'll get some inspiration there. But for everyone there, thank you for listening. For good, exactly. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on MSP Unplugged.